Having an illness doesn't just affect the individual, it affects their entire social network. The people that love and cherish them, their friends and their family. And mental illness is no different. Perhaps we too often don't see physical illness and mental illness in the same light, but they very much are. A cancer patient needs the support of their friends and family to help them through their recovery, and likewise, those with depression need the same care and attention. More insidiously, mental illness might even convince a sufferer that they're a burden on those around them. This perpetuates a cycle of guilt and silence, and it is dangerously unhelpful. But how do we help those with mental illness? Is there a work colleague who has been struggling? Or a family member or friend whose mental illness has made them seem distant and not themselves? Hi, I'm Joe Barnby. I'm a research scientist and mental health professional at Thrive, and today I'm going to talk about how to support a family member or a friend or colleague with a mental illness. So there are a number of things we can do for our colleagues, friends and family that might just make all the difference to help them on their path to recovery or make their life worth living again. Not only that, there are a number of things that you can do to support yourself in helping someone with a mental illness. Because as previously mentioned, mental illness affects us all. Taking care of yourself is a vital aspect of mental health care, as it means you're more able to help others. So 25% of us are likely to develop a mental illness at some point in our life. This might come earlier or later, depending on the illness, but these numbers almost guarantee that you'll work with someone or know someone personally who has one. On top of this, evidence reports that around 70% of people worldwide aren't seeking treatment for their mental illness. This is because of a lack of knowledge about symptoms and how to treat them, prejudiced attitudes towards mental illness, and anticipated or real acts of aggression towards those with mental illness. In sum, these factors are known as stigma and are particularly damaging to those who are most vulnerable. On the extreme end of the spectrum, carers who look after those with severe mental illness such as schizophrenia or dementia can experience poorer physical and psychological health, leading to burnout. This can then spiral into frustration toward the sufferer and then guilt about this frustration, which can lead to poorer health. Now, the good news is that if you're listening to this, you're probably already convinced of the struggles and hopelessness that mental illness can bring to someone. As mentioned before, this most likely means that you don't have a prejudiced attitude towards those with mental illness. But in any case, the best way to help someone is to first understand their suffering. Psychoeducation or mental health first aid training is a relatively brief but broad approach to understanding and recognizing mental illness. And this comes with a useful acronym, ALGEE, or ALGEE. And this stands for A, assess risk. And this means checking to see if your friend, colleague, or family member is at risk of harming themselves or committing suicide. Now, this might sound quite intense, but it is a vital thing to come to terms with to stop someone, even briefly, from hurting themselves. Sometimes this assessment might not be verbal, and you might get an immediate sense that someone isn't about to hurt or kill themselves. Even still, sometimes asking is safer than not asking, even if it feels quite strange and awkward. L, listen non-judgmentally. A huge factor in the development of mental illness is the inability for someone to feel that they can safely express themselves and externalize their internal thoughts. Sometimes this alone can help. Being a patient, careful listener has a bigger impact than you think, and taking the time to hear what your friend, family member, or colleague has to say lets them know that they're not alone. You don't have to come up with a solution to their problem, just lend an ear. G, give reassurances and information. This lets the sufferer know that there is hope and realize their problems can be managed and overcome. This requires a little bit of research on the listener's end, as you might need to signpost someone to a place where they can get more support, or even let them know that there is support out there that they can access. E, encouragement. This builds on the last point and aims to encourage the person suffering to seek support. This might be in a form of a charity, like Brothers in Arms, NHS IAP services, or if someone needs immediate help, accident and emergency. Using your best judgment and also talking with someone, the person who is suffering, will help to understand which service or place to point them toward. E. Encourage self-help strategies. At the end of going through this acronym, you're asked to encourage the person to practice some strategies to self-soothe and manage their symptoms, assuming, of course, that there is no immediate danger to themselves or others. For example, in depression, some breathing techniques, light therapy, or encouraging more exercise might be useful goals. As we've mentioned in previous talks, some basic life changes can lead to better management of mental illness, and these include better sleep, better diet, more exercise, and less alcohol and smoking. As we know, mental illness can demotivate us and convince us that no one cares. It might make all the difference to go with someone to the gym, share an eating plan, or even drink less with them to help support their lifestyle. Mental illness isn't a choice. It is the result of social, psychological, and biological changes leading to emotional and cognitive vulnerabilities. Understanding this core tenet can help frame our approach to those with mental illness in a more compassionate way, knowing that they can't help the way that they're responding to things. All we can do is to support them so that they can try and engage with life in their own way, in a non-judgmental and safe environment. Of course, all of this support can be exhausting and requires some self-care. Recent evidence has suggested that the best form of support for yourself is psychoeducation and self-management when it comes to looking after those with mental illness. Understanding who you're supporting and what they're going through and keeping an eye on your own health all contribute. There are charities that help carers of those with mental illness who look after those long term. There are also workplace interventions that can help to support an awareness of mental illness in the workplace so that the environment becomes more tolerant, safe, and hopefully less stressful, thereby reducing the mental illness in the environment. If you want a visual summary of this blog, you can check the companion notes that go along with it, and for our cited evidence, you can check the references listed in the companion notes.